This is VK3CSJ in Narre Warren South. Please stand by for this morning's WIA broadcast at 9 a.m. on 1825 kHz in the 160 metre amateur radio band.
It's time to get your news on. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
It is the national news from the WIA for week commencing July 20, 2025. And this week, Paul, VK5 PAS, VKFF National Coordinator, Editor-in-Chief of Amateur Radio Magazine Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, WIA Director Lee Moyle, VK3GK, Michelle, VK2AYL, President, Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association, and the Picton Show Society are holding the Picton Hamfest, and VK2TS Tony will have details. Now wait, there's much more in this edition of news from the Wireless Institute of Australia. I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB.
This news originates from the Wireless Institute of Australia, Born to lead since 1910.
Most weeks here at WIA National News, we conclude with what we call the social scene, where we give details of ham club activities open to all hams and the general public. We ask clubs to email text along with audio for that section to nationalnews@wia.org.au. Now, we have lots of activity happening right around VK now until Santa rolls in. So this week, let's start our national news with the social scene. And then it's WIA Director Lee Moyle. 2025 Social Scene, Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association's 50th anniversary. Here's Michelle.
VK2 AYL for the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association, ALARA. On Saturday the 26th of July, ALARA will be celebrating their 50th anniversary. ALARA members from across the country will be travelling to Melbourne to enjoy a birthday lunch function and trips to local attractions, including the Phillip Island Penguin Parade and the Puffing Billy train. For those not able to attend the event in person, there will be an opportunity to tune into the Echolink ALARA conference station at 0000 UTC on Saturday the 26th of July 2025 for the 50th birthday net. Please join in and say hello.
Thanks, Michelle. In VK4, it's the Redcliffe Car Boot Sale, Saturday, 30 August at the Clubhouse. Also in VK4, it's Sunfest at Beerwah Community Hall, 25 Peachester Road, 9:30am, September 13. Right across VK, September 14, between 4 and 5pm, Australian Eastern Standard Time, it's the WIA Affiliated Clubs Briefing, a webinar. In VK2, Westlakes Field Day, 8am, October 26 on the club grounds. AREG's Amateur Radio and Electronic Sale, Sunday the 26th of October at David Roche Park, Kilbourne, of course in VK5. VK4, the Gold Coast Amateur Radio Society, their Hamfest, Country Paradise Parklands, Beaudesert, Nerang Road. VK7, Miana Hamfest, Saturday, November 15 at 10am. In VK3, the Rosebud Radio Fest, Eastbourne Primary School at Rosebud, November 16. And in VK2, the Picton Hamfest.
Hi, this is Tony, VK2TS from the Allura Amateur Radio Society. The Picton Show Society would like to inform amateur radio operators and radio enthusiasts of the Picton Hamfest. This event will take place at Picton Showground, 151 Menangle Street, Picton, on the 23rd of November 2025. Car boot sellers and traders are required to book and pay for their sites prior to the event. $30 each for a 6x6 metre outdoor site. Bring your own shelter, tables, etc. Traders will also have a limited number of indoor sites, which are $40 each for a 4x4 metre site. Tables are supplied and power outlet is available. Gates open at 6am for car boot and trader setup. General admission is from 8am and exit from the venue is by 2pm. Food vans will be available from 8am and there will be undercover seating in that food van area. The Hamfest will be run in conjunction with a general meeting, so there's plenty for X-Wile and others to do. The Hamfest and general markets will be in a separate area, a short walk apart. To book a site, call Steve from the Picton Show Society on 0421 109 694. That number again, 0421 109 694. Now for the best bit. General entry is free. And the event is leashed dog friendly. Information provided by Simon, VK2XQX, on behalf of the Allura Amateur Radio Society.
VK8, it's the Darwin Amateur Radio Club's Christmas party, 6:30pm, December 3. And the last webinar for the year of the WIA affiliated clubs will take place December 7.
Across Australia from VK1 WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service. Across northern VK7, it can be heard on repeaters VK7s, RAA, RAC, RAL and RWC. At 9am local time on Sundays and Tuesdays at 8pm. I'm Peter, VK7PD.
This is WIA Director Lee Moyle, VK3GK. Thanks to Kevin Johnston, VK4UH, who keeps a very diligent eye on the VHF and UHF records for the WIA, as he reports from VK4 that the microwave lads in late May were breaking national records on 3.4 and 5.7 gigs. Kevin is one of our many volunteers that keep your WIA running, and there are several vacancies available from VK3 inwards QSL sorting to to technical advisors for D-Star and satellites. Interested? Then email WIA HQ asking for further information. The board of the WIA have published details of requirements to be followed by WIA national news rebroadcast stations. Stations wishing to rebroadcast the weekly WIA national news need to comply with the provisions of a common licence which has been introduced and shall commence on the 31st of July 2025. There is no significant change to rebroadcast arrangements for most rebroadcast stations. The common licence is published on the WIA website and details some important aspects which need to be followed by rebroadcast stations. The common licence states that the content of the broadcast is copyright to the WIA. Ownership of the content is retained by the WIA. The content of the broadcast shall not be modified, edited or used to create derivative works without prior written consent from the Secretary of the WIA. Notification of the copyright provisions and the requirement to follow the common licence will be included at the beginning of the broadcast. A number of WIA members and directors will be attending Tokyo Ham Fair next month in mid-August. I'm sure the VK3s will notice the heat. Some VKs already have their Japanese reciprocal licenses issued. The two-day event attracts visitors from around the world and attendee numbers are usually around 35,000. It gives us opportunity to meet and discuss important issues facing amateur radio in Region 3, as well as seeing new product releases from many radio manufacturers and catching up with many ham friends. For now, 7-3 from me, VK3GK.
Good morning all on this, the World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly. This is Editor-in-Chief of Amateur Radio Magazine, Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, coming to you from what is now known as Southport on the Queensland Gold Coast. You guessed it, that's right, last Wednesday, issue number 4 of Amateur Radio Magazine whizzed off the press in Bairnsdale, on the Mitchell River, in Victoria's East Gippsland, gateway to the Gippsland Lakes, a scenic part of VK3. The theme for this issue is Antennas and Earths, subject of keen interest to all amateurs, I'm sure. Well, except for those hams on the International Space Station, I guess. I wonder where they earth their rigs up there. Our articles on the topic of antennas include a review of a commercial 28 meg vertical featured on the cover. Also, the saga of designing and building an inner suburban 9-band long wire beam antenna by Doc Westcombe Down, VK5 BUG. Plus, Emeritus Professor Peter Hall, VK6HP, details a remotely operated dual-band antenna coupler for 136 and 475 kcs that feeds a 22.5 metre live mast. Both Doc and Peter expound on the importance of earthing. Also, on that very subject, Dale Hughes, VK1DSH, gets down in the dirt, getting to know his earth resistance. You could too. There will be many listeners, no doubt, who are enthusiastic owners of the locally built TET beams and newer TET Emtron models. Well, Mark Rawlings, VK6MOA, who was well experienced with TETs, offers a trove of tips to restore or refurbish those trusty TETs. While antenna and feedline installations appear deceptively simple, achieving the intended performance for an antenna system or troubleshooting problems can often be the opposite of simple. Knowing just the value of the SWR is always one parameter to consider, perhaps the first, but you need to know more if there's a problem. So, I took the opportunity to review an antenna analyzer, the Match, from Rig Expert, the Ukrainian-based developer and manufacturer of antenna analyzers, transceiver interfaces and amateur radio software sold all over the globe. In learning how to use it, it taught me a lot. Smart people, those 4 hams who launched a Rig Expert. That's it for now, folks. I plan having more for you next week. Don't forget, there's always much more in every edition of Amateur Radio Magazine. More guts, less gab. Serving hams across Australia since 1933. Proudly produced and printed in Australia. I'm Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, for VK1WIA News.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now with international news, Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello, leading this week's international news out of Bangladesh. A 28-year-old woman who went missing from her home in Islampur in Uttar Dinajpur district nearly 8 years ago has been traced in Bangladesh and reconnected with her family thanks to the efforts made by some amateur radio operators from both sides of the border, despite the frosty ties between the two countries in recent months. It was on July 9 when an amateur radio operator, Mohammed Abdul Ghani Fitu, saw a woman in ragged clothes at the Golabari railway station in Bangladesh. He rescued her with the help of some local residents and gave her food. Later, the girl was able to give him the names of her parents and her home address in India. I was surprised that she was from India. She seems to have some intellectual disabilities and could not tell me how she ended up in Bangladesh. She was unwell and we gave primary treatment to her. She said her name was Sama Khatun, aged 28, and we found that the village she mentioned is in India. I contacted some amateur radio operators I know in India. Ghani told the Indian Express over the phone from Bangladesh. Ham Shack Hotline to be discontinued. Say goodbye to Ham Shack Hotline, the free VoIP telecom service. The service announced it would be discontinued effective the 29th of August. The project began back in 2018 and grew to be a global communications network with a peak establishment of 7,000 interconnections across numerous servers. Ham Shack Hotline's board of directors said it will donate whatever cash reserves it may have to a charity that supports military veterans. Canada, we have a question. A new question bank will be used for all basic amateur radio certificate examinations starting last Tuesday, July 15, 2025. Candidates, instructors and authors of amateur radio study guides may want to study the new question bank, which is available for download from the ISED website. Radio Amateurs of Canada has had a committee of 20 instructors and accredited examiners, AEs, working to update and improve the quality of the 984 questions, 984 correct answers, and 2,952 distractors, incorrect answers, in the question bank. This is the first major update to the question bank since 2013. Still with exams, and in New Zealand, their new question bank will take effect from the 1st of January 2026, so as not to disadvantage anyone who is studying for the exam now. Exam supervisors will be notified in December to update their exams and destroy any old printed exams. For WIA National News, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
We are VK1WIA. Now, operational news with VK4FUQ. Felix.
Now, contest-wise, 2025. LABRE DX contest all weekend. From Brazil with participation worldwide using just CW and SSB on 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10 metres. Trans-Tasman Lubin contest and Yoda contest Saturday 19. Russian EME contest July 26-27 on 1296 MHz, 2.3 and 10 GHz. RSGB IDA contest July 26 to July 27. Mode CW SSB. Bands 80, 40, 20, 15, 10 metres. Work once per band, per mode. Remembrance Day contest 16th and 17th August 2025. Shine a little light, register now. This year, International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend will run from 0001 hours UTC on 16 August to 2400 hours UTC on 17 August. The event usually attracts more than 500 lighthouse entries located in over 40 countries. Now the DX window to the world. Mikhail, OM2DX, informs us that he will be active from Tonga as A32DX and Fiji as 3D2XD at the end of July. 3D2XD Fiji, July 22, July 25. A32DX Tonga, July 25, July 30. Activity will be holiday style, covering 66 metres. Before and after his Pacific adventure, Mikkel also QRV from different VK and ZL areas. In the World DX, Nicholas F5 TGR will be on the air from Iceland as TF/F5 TGR from July 26th through to August the 9th on 40, 30, 20, 15, 12 and 10 metres. Nicholas will also be using CWSSB and FT8. See QRZ.com for QSL details. Don't expect cardboard QSL cards from this one. Andre will be active holiday style CN2NE from Morocco now until 22nd July on 46 metres from grid locator IM63DM. QSL by EQSL and QRZ logbook. Remember, he does not plan to have paper cards. Bo is active as OX3LX from Greenland, IOTA NA018, until July 29. HF bands in QO100 satellite. QSL via OZ0J. His direct route address is in our text edition. For WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ in Ingham.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Bruce, VK3FFF.
And a very good day to you. Worldwide special interest groups, balloons. 32 campers travelled from all over the world to Thornton, Colorado in June to attend the annual Americas-wide camp for amateur radio operators aged 15 to 25 called Youth on the Air. Jack McElroy, KM4ZIA, has been the leader of the Yota balloon launch team since he was 14 years old at the camp's first in-person event in the Americas. In 2022, we here at the news desk shared Jack's story of one of his personal balloons becoming the closest any amateur radio balloon has been to the South Pole. At this year's Yota camp, the youth team, in cooperation with Edge of Space Sciences, launched a high-altitude balloon, tracked it by APRS, and brought back video from near space after reaching a height of 96,600 feet. But thunderstorms prevented the launch of the two Pico balloons scheduled for that afternoon. Instead, the balloons were transported to NIST radio station WWV in Fort Collins the next day, where the campers were taking a tour of the facility and operated portable stations. The wide-open spaces and clear sky at WWV proved to be a great launch site for these balloons as they started the longest journey of any Yota Americas balloons yet. At the time of recording this edition of Newsline, one balloon is flying over Hawaii and closing in on an entire orbit around the Earth, while the other balloon made it to Western Iran before returning to the ground. You can follow the trek of these balloons on whispernet.org under KM4ZIA and on aprs.fi under WOY-1 and WOY-11. Worldwide Special Interest Group News, Summits on the Air, Worldwide Flora Fauna Program, Parks on the Air and other adventure groups. Paul, VK5PAS, the VKFF National Coordinator, joins us.
Commencing on Friday the 24th of October and concluding on Monday the 27th of October 2025, the VKFF team are hosting the third annual VKFF National Get-Together. This year, the Get-Together is being held in Canberra. The VKFF National Get-Together is an event for those interested in the worldwide Flora and Fauna Park program, no matter if you are a beginner or an experienced park activator or hunter. Previous get-togethers have been held in Renmark, South Australia and Bendigo, Victoria, and these proved to be very popular. This year's event in Canberra will kick off with an evening meal on Friday night at the Lighthouse Pub in Belconnen. On Saturday, a series of presentations will be delivered during the day on various topics relating to the WWFF program and operating portable. This will be held at the Eastlake Football Club. A raffle will be held on Saturday with some excellent prizes, including transceivers. On Saturday evening, a dinner function will be held at the Eastlake Football Club. This includes a guest speaker. On Sunday, a barbecue breakfast will be held at Black Mountain Peninsula Barbecue Area. This will be followed by a link dipole construction session. Sunday afternoon will see a large number of amateurs heading out into the field to activate VKFF parks. 4 experienced VKFF park activators have volunteered to take less experienced park activators out to some of the ACT parks to show them some of the tips in successfully activating a VKFF park. On Sunday evening, a dinner will be held at the Gungahlin Lakes Golf Club. The get-together will conclude on Monday with some visits to the Royal Australian Mint and the Australian War Memorial. You must register to attend this event. Walk-ups will not be accepted. You can attend whatever part of the get-together you choose, but you must register. More information on the 2025 VKFF National Get-Together can be found on the WWFF Australia website at www.ffaustralia.com. Many thanks for listening. 73, Paul, VK5, Papa Alpha Sierra, the VKFF National Coordinator.
Thanks, Paul, and great to be on air with you. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Digital. MMDVM, a popular software and hardware project that powers many amateur radio hotspots, has announced the intention to drop the M17 digital voice and data protocol as a supported mode. First communicated to the OpenDVGroups.io list on July the 12th, the project's maintainer cited a number of grievances and rumours behind the decision. Inclusion of M17 among the supported modes of the MMDVM project has been a major benefit to the current rate of adoption of M17. The first commercial radios supporting M17 shipped in the second half of 2024. The M17 project is an open-source digital voice and data protocol that is positioned as an alternative to digital modes that require use of proprietary encoders. MMDVM is an open-source project that enables amateur radio hotspots to support multiple digital voice modes, including D-Star, DMR, YSF, P25, NXDN, and POC-SAG. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Final Frontier. SpaceX currently has one active Starship launch tower at Starbase, Texas, with a second at Starbase Pad B nearing completion. Meanwhile, at Cape Canaveral, SpaceX is actively building a launch tower at their LC-39A site, which could see a launch next year after finishing touches to its launch mount, flame trench, chopsticks, ground support equipment and plumbing. The company is exploring adding a second catch-only tower to LC-39A. And $10 billion more for NASA. The Republican-controlled U.S. House and Senate passed a budget reconciliation bill on July 3rd that added $10 billion back into the national budget for NASA programs. This reconciliation bill, H.R. 1, commonly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, includes roughly $10 billion in additions that were slated to be cut in the White House's budget request. These include operational funding for the ISS through 2030, $4.1 billion for Artemis 4 and 5 SLS rockets, full funding of current lunar gateway plans, $1 billion in unspecified improvements to NASA centres around the country, $700 million for the revived after 20 years Mars Telecommunications Orbiter, a close fit to the orbiter in Rocket Lab's MSR proposal, an additional $325 million for launching the SpaceX ISS deorbit vehicle, and oddly, the relocation of a space vehicle assumed to be the Space Shuttle Discovery from DC to Johnson Space Center in Houston to the tune of $85 million.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups IOTA announced participants in the IOTA contest the 26th and 27th of July from Italian islands include IR5C from Capraia EU028 SSB, QSL via IU3EDK, Direct or Bureau, IB7V from San Pietro EU073 SSB, QSL via home call IK7IMO, Direct or Bureau, IP1X Gallinara EU083 SSB and CW, QSL via club logs OQRS or via IU1JCZ, Direct or Bureau, II3Y from Santa Maria de Barbana EU130. They will operate SSB and CW, QSL via M0OXO's OQRS. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, military, from calls home during the Vietnam War to pilots flying over the Pacific. Today, Mars has been connecting America's military for 100 years. Since its beginning in 1925, the core mission of the Military Auxiliary Radio System has remained the same: keep our military connected no matter what. Dave Antry, Air Force Mars Chief, explained the mission of Mars is to provide contingency backup communications. If SATCOM radios go out, then pilots can jump on the high-frequency radio. Dave said most of our aircraft have high-frequency radios in them. Pilots can call into one of our Mars radio operators and request to make a phone call. The system supports a range of mission communications for aircraft, including updating bases on arrival times, troubleshooting aircraft issues with maintenance crews, helping with medical evacuation, or even morale calls to mum and dad. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Rescue Radio, Wyson, New South Wales. The next Wyson Online Members Forum will be at 7:30pm on Tuesday next, the 22nd of July. This is where members can raise any issues that are concerning them. Central Coast Wyson has several events coming up in August. They are the Kirawak Endurance Ride on the 2nd and 3rd, and the Shahzada, which runs from the 25th to the 29th. If you are interested in assisting with these events, please contact Cole, VK2ZCO. The 2025 Wyson New South Wales AGM is scheduled for 2pm on Saturday the 9th of August at the ARNSW site, Quarry Road, Dural. One of Wyson's flagship events is the Hawkesbury Canoe Classic. This year it is on the weekend of the 8th and 9th of November. Wyson New South Wales provides the safety communications and requires many members to provide coverage of the course. And remember, Wyson New South Wales is a communications support squad of VRA Rescue New South Wales. For more information about Wyson, please visit the website nsw.wyson.org.au. I'm Bruce, VK3FFF from sunny but cold Bendigo.
This is VK1WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions, www.wia.org.au.
Well, there we be, WIA National News for another week. So, till next we do meet, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
We're in the middle of some fast solar wind. We have some gorgeous filament eruptions, and some active regions both on the sun's front side and on the sun's far side are growing. Those stories and more are in the news this week. If you want to learn how weather from our star causes impacts at the Earth that shape the future of our world, join Professors Dr. Jenny Meehan, Michael Cook, and myself as we guide you through a space weather certificate program like no other. To enroll in the Space Weather and Environment Science program offered at Millersville University, go to millersville.edu/SWEN. It's weather for the 21st century. This forecast also sponsored in part by CW Ops. Space weather this week is getting pretty active. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, we do have this massive coronal hole we've been dealing with over the past few days, and we're going to continue to deal with it for probably the next 2 or 3 days before things finally calm down. We had been getting some fast wind from this pocket here. All of this in here, however, is pretty much at higher latitude, so Earth is just barely getting grazed by this fast solar wind. Therefore, we've only been seeing active to possibly minor storm conditions kind of on and off throughout this past week. We will continue to see that as time goes on. But that's not the big story. The bigger story has to do with these regions right here. We have region 4136, 4139, and a couple others that have been growing in here. These have been firing off smaller solar flares, but they're growing quite rapidly. So we're going to be expecting that the risk for radio blackouts is going to continue to rise over the next couple days. Plus, you'll see this filament here get blown off, mainly from activity from this region here. It kind of destabilized the edge of this filament, and we'll talk more about that in a sec. But first, I want you to see over here, region 4041 and a couple regions on the sun's far side. Look at this. You see this massive filament eruption. You can't really see it from SDO's view, but when we switch to the SUVI instrument on GOES, we sure can see this thing. So again, this is from Earth's view. So this is activity that's happening essentially on the far side. But look at this eruption and this gorgeous filament. It's not Earth directed, but it was part of a huge eruption on the sun's far side. And as we take a look in coronagraphs, you can see this massive partial halo. You would think that this would be Earth directed, but it really isn't. This is all blowing basically away from Earth. So we're not getting any Earth impact from that. But boy, was this beautiful eruption. However, that's not the only one. Just shortly after that one erupted, look at region 4136. Like I said, all this activity in this area really causes this filament to lift off. You can't really see that. It kind of disappeared for a sec. The image did because we were in eclipse season, which means that the moon comes between the sun and the SDO spacecraft. So sadly, we kind of blacked out right when this filament left off. But again, as we switch to our SUVI instrument, you can see just a gorgeous display. Look at this filament eruption. Just beautiful. Whoosh. Now look at this. See the edge of this? This is region 4136, and this is the scar that tears off of the sun right here. Now this part right in here is in the Earth strike zone, but as we watch the bulk of this filament lift off, do you see how it's all kind of going to the northeast? Sadly, despite the fact that it looks like we could get clipped by this region or by this filament eruption, we probably won't. In fact, as we take a look at the view in coronagraphs, you can see this big, not even really a partial halo, but you can see this big signature of that structure going basically to the northeast of Earth. Sadly, there is a filament eruption that also occurs off to the west, and that means that whatever signature might have been down in here is kind of getting camouflaged by this. So likely we're not going to get hit by this filament eruption, probably just going to get a little bit of a bumpy ride, but that might be along with the tail end of this fast solar wind. So can't say that we're going to have any Earth-directed solar storms right now. However, these regions are still being very active. You can see them right here. In fact, we're going to get another number here in just a moment as right there as more and more of these regions begin to pop out here. So as this cluster begins to rotate to the west limb, expect that the noise on the bands to continue to rise. Expect the risk for radio blackouts to rise. In fact, I think we're sitting at about 15% chance of an R3 level radio blackout just right now. And that could increase over the next couple days. It also means we could see a bigger risk for radiation storms. So you aviators definitely pay attention, because, and those people who care about high latitudes, we could definitely see a risk for radiation storms growing over the next couple days. But outside of that, we're just going to be paying attention very much to what's going on the sun's far side and getting rid of this coronal hole while we're waiting for this new one to rotate into the Earth strike zone, which will happen probably in about 10 days. And now taking a look at our far-sighted sun, we can use stereo A imagery again, because stereo A has finally orbited beyond the west limb of the sun from Earth's view, and it can still see part of the sun's far side. So in fact, as we look at stereo imagery, you can see here's Earth, here's the sun, and here's stereo A staring at the sun just a bit from the side. In fact, you can really see that coronal hole that we see at Earth's view is pretty much, on the eastern side of the sun. Only a small extension of it is on the western side of the sun from stereo's view. And stereo can still see region 4130 and 4134. In fact, this is where all of that activity is, with all those southern eruptions and that big filament eruption. So as we watch, as this region they rotate to the west limb here, about on the 15th, you can see a big eruption going off there, and now that lights off this. You'll see this big tear all the way down as that filament lets go. Watch it. Look at that. All the way down. So there's at least 2, if not 3 eruptions right there. Then we get another one. Boom, right there. And then we get another one pretty soon after that, within 24 hours or so. Boom, there's another. Boom. So how many is that? Like 5? My goodness, this just alight with activity on the sun's far side right now. And so we're going to be watching these very closely. Sadly, they're moving out of stereo A's view, but we'll look at them in the full sun map, because solar orbiter is staring at the sun's far side, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But as you can see, the activity continues to rise, and that means that in about 10 to 12 days, when these regions rotate back into Earth view, we will be watching to see if they are still solar storm producers. And now switching to our full sun map, we're taking a look at stereo AIA imagery. That's what you see here in red, as well as solar orbiter EUI imagery. That's what's in blue. This is the far side of the sun. This is the front side of the sun. You can see the east limb and the west limb from Earth's view sitting right here. So this is what the front side of the sun looks like right now. Quite a few active regions. The far side doesn't look too shabby either. We got quite a few active regions there. Over the past week, as I put this in motion, you can see regions 4130, 4134. You can see all of that activity. This is where that southern filament eruption occurred. All of that activity continues to grow. You can see even new regions growing. So we definitely know that we're going to be getting some activity all around the far side. In fact, solar orbiter has been showing big solar flares over the last few days, in particular up at almost an R2 level radio blackout. So we're paying attention. On top of that, let me back this up just a smidge, and you can see we've got a new region that's been emerging on the sun's disk. This is from solar orbiter's view, starting around the 11th. This one, let me see if I can back it up a little bit more. Maybe around the 10th. My goodness. Yes, around the 10th, that's when this region started emerging. That's about when we started seeing some of these bigger flares. But you can also see a couple other flaring regions up in here, 4144. You can see 4125 and 4127. These regions, this one here is also associated with all of the activity we've seen in the south there. So believe it or not, the sun's far side is really kind of a bigger hotbed of activity than the front side right now. We're going to see this region rotate into Earth view in probably about 3 to 4 days. So get ready, amateur radio operators and emergency responders. We could start seeing some flare risk really begin to rise, not just over this week, but also over next week as well, as some of these other regions begin to rotate into Earth view. So enjoy the quiet while you have it. And now stepping outside to look at our current conditions with our global geochron map, we'll take a look at the ROTI index first. This is the risk for scintillation at high frequencies like GPS frequencies. And you can see all the little hot spots. It's been quite active, not just on the night side. You can see the shadow here shows the night side of Earth, whereas the lit up side shows the day side. But you can also see some stuff periodically at high latitude. So lots of little red hot spots everywhere. And that's mainly because we've had quite a bit of activity with the fast solar wind causing mild geomagnetic storming. That kind of stuff just happens. It causes a lot more scintillation. So if you are a GPS user or a drone flyer, just know that things are a bit on the dicey side. Be sure to check be sure to calibrate your magnetometers often, and just be vigilant for scintillation, for loss of GPS reception. Now, as we switch to our DRAP view, this is for lower frequencies like HF and VHF frequencies. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, you guys pay attention to this. We're actually seeing just a few pops here and there, but for the most part, the impacts have been pretty low in terms of maximum frequency, up to about 10 megahertz. So we're not really seeing much degradation in the radio communication. You can see here all the amateur radio contacts being done, but we do get a little bit of a pop. I think there was one solar flare that got up into about the 20 megahertz range in terms of some issues here, but it was very brief, not really all that much. Expect, however, that this risk for radio blackouts to rise, and expect the potential for R1 to R2 level radio blackouts to really pop up. We'll talk more about those in the 5-day, but overall things shouldn't be too bad. Now, as we switch to our Ovation auroral model, well, we haven't been having a lot of activity. It's just been kind of low level. As you can see, we actually did reach up into the G1 level just a little bit. We had a bit of aurora for a short period, but it always kind of dies down quite quickly. So we're going to be sitting there at kind of just mild aurora, not a lot for those that aren't at high latitudes to see, probably not even all that much storm time aurora. So most of it will be green arcs and such. For overall, that's likely going to start dying down here over the next couple days, but we do have potentially a bit of wake from that filament eruption that's going northeast of Earth. We'll talk more about that in the 5-day, because that might give us just a little bit of activity. And now, switching to our moon, we are passing through the third quarter phase on our way to a new moon, and by the 22nd, the moon will be only about 7% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, like, I don't know, maybe some aurora, and remember, the beginning of the Perseid meteor shower is going to be starting here as we move into the latter part of July and into August. So you might start seeing a bit more of those beautiful meteors. Now is a perfect time to take a look, but expect that meteor count to rise by the day. And now, switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating kind of a brush by with that solar storm that's kind of going to the northeast of Earth. So I've got it set on storm watch, but at high latitudes, we could be expecting active conditions. That's a combination of that storm plus the fast solar wind that we're still in. NOAA's giving us about a 20% chance of a major storm over the next day. That could continue into the 19th before things really begin to calm down. By the 20th, we're probably going to be settling back down into unsettled conditions, but we still have about a 30% chance of active conditions. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, it might be worth a look, especially on the 18th and the 19th. Now, as we switch to mid-latitudes, well, we're really only expecting unsettled conditions. We still are going to have that storm watch over the 18th and 19th, but we're only going to have about a 10% chance of a minor storm, possibly on the 18th, if that thing clips us a little bit more than we expect. Then things should settle down, maybe a 30% chance of activity on the 19th, but by the 20th, things should be back to being reasonably quiet. Of course, with all of the different solar storms that keep launching with all these active regions on the Earth's disk, or the sun's disk, this could change quite quickly. Now, switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we are sitting in the mid-triple digits for solar flux right now, 150s to 155. This is because we have those cluster of active regions that are rotating to the west limb that are really beginning to get, really beginning to grow and show risk for radio blackouts. NOAA's giving us about a 60% chance of R1 to R2 level radio blackouts on the dayside. We are definitely seeing that moderate noise continue to rise. I'm extending that out through about the 5-day. We may see a slight drop in R1 to R2 level radio blackout risk, but I'm not going to drop it too low because we have those new regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view. We also have about a 15% chance of X-class flares at the R3 level radio blackout over the next 3 days, and I've again extended that to the 5-day because it's kind of hard to tell what those regions on the sun's far side, how they're going to contribute to all of this. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, enjoy the quiet for the moment, but things are definitely ramping up. Now, as we switch to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming coming week. Everything is in the green right now when it comes to radiation storms. We're sitting at the D1 normal range. This is at flight level 360 for you aviators. It's also the S0 quiet range for everyone else. We are having about a 10% risk of an S1 to S2 radiation storm right now. I'm going to see if that might rise up to about 15 or 20%, depending upon how quickly those regions that are rotating to the west limb grow. So this may be changing quite quickly. So all of you frequent flyers, and this does include you high-risk passengers and you aircrew, keep an eye on those ICAO advisories, because if radiation storm or if radio blackouts beginning to creep up, then likely the risk for radiation storms will creep up as well. So the space weather this week is getting pretty active. We have a couple gorgeous filament launches that are not Earth directed, but one of them might give us a little bit of a graze, along with a fast solar wind we're going to be dealing with over the next couple days until this thing kind of calms down. Aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you might get a bit of aurora. We'll have to kind of, go out and take a look. But aurora photographers, if you're at mid latitudes, well, only if this thing is unexpectedly large and actually does hit us would I expect any show to be visible for you all. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, things are a bit quiet right now, but you might be noticing that noise ramping up on the dayside radio bands. Well, that's because we've got those active regions really growing. So the risk for radio blackouts is definitely on the rise, and we could see that through this week and possibly next week before things calm down. And now you GPS users, well, right now things are okay, but the roti scintillation is really the risk for that is pretty big right now. So just stay vigilant, both on the night side and on the day side. And of course, always stay vigilant near dawn and near dusk. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.